So, you know how everyone online, especially if you are into personal development, keep talking about living in alignment, and how sometimes it sounds like it's some sparkly life hack you can download off Etsy. But here's the thing that most people don't say: you can't live in alignment if you don't actually know what you're aligning to. Hi, lovely DIAers. Welcome to another episode of the Dream in Action podcast, the podcast where dreams are celebrated, dreamers highly valued, because we change the world when we take action on those dreams. Which is why dreams in action are always celebrated here. I'm your host, TRE, your dream doula, transformational coach, and creative. And it is my mission to see more folks lean into fulfilling their dreams in the belief that we will in turn live fulfilling, purpose filled lives. It's a new day, it's a new week, and I just concluded my first full week at my new employment. So, needless to say, I've had quite an eventful week of learning and feeling my way through something that's new and fresh. Also, earlier this week, Ose and I were having a very interesting conversation. And it was on the concept of boredom. And I thought it would be a fun one to explore on the podcast next week. So, if an episode exploring why we get bored, maybe different levels of boredom, hidden signs that you are bored, meaning obviously we've said hidden, so that means you probably didn't even know that you were bored. And what could that possibly mean? And most importantly, what to do about it. So, if it is something you will find interesting, then do tune in to next week's episode. Now, last week, we talked about self awareness, that raw, unfiltered honesty of this is me and this isn't. Well, this week, we're picking up right where we left off, because if self awareness shows you who you are, then values show you what matters most about who you are. And in my opinion, nothing clears that mental fog faster than figuring out what actually matters most to you. It's like finally getting the right prescription lenses after walking around blurry for years. Speaking of blurry, I do need to get myself some glasses. I've been thinking about it a lot. I think my eyesight in the last couple of years are not what they used to be, so I should get myself checked out. Anyway, without further ado, my name is TRE and this is the Dream in Action podcast. Have you ever felt like you were just existing, not truly living? Like you were made for more, but somehow life got in the way? Hey, I'm TRE, your host, transformational coach, and dream doula. Welcome to Dream in Action, the podcast where we don't just talk about dreams, we bring them to life. For years, I nurtured others, first as my mom's oldest child, then as a mother myself. And then somewhere along the way, I lost me, stuck in autopilot. But I was never able to shake the fact that my mom passed away at just 42, full of unfulfilled dreams. And I knew I couldn't keep waiting. So I embraced the stretch, took action, and found opportunities in places I never expected. Now, I help women over 40 do the same. Stop waiting, start dreaming, and take bold action. If you're ready to go from feeling stuck to building something meaningful, you're in the right place. This is Dream in Action. A few years back, I attended an all-day workshop somewhere in central London. I actually had to go check the name of the workshop for a moment and the person who hosted it. And I was stunned to see that it was called Create the Life of Your Wildest Dreams. So it looks like I've been on this dream soapbox for quite a while. Anyway, one of the tasks we completed was a values list task. Now, there's a version of this list on Brené Brown's website. And if you DM me on Instagram at HeyTiari, I can send you the link, or you could just Google it, or I will make sure I put the link in the show notes for you. Anyway, the task was to look at this list of, it looked like 100 or so beautiful descriptive words and pick our top 3 to 5 values. We worked in silence for about 15 to 20 minutes thereabouts. Now, for whatever reason, I found this exercise quite difficult. There was this, I don't know, internal struggle of what is and what it ought to be. I'll see a word like kindness and say to myself, that is a value you should have. I mean, who doesn't want to be that person, right? Who has all those values like compassion and care and excellence, right? Well, something the facilitator said that did help though was free picking as many as called out to us right there and then putting them in categories to narrow them down. So, for instance, if you had something like freedom, adventure, and travel on your list, now those 3 values obviously point to an umbrella value of, say, freedom and flexibility, give or take a few nuances. Now, I have since realized that while this exercise is great at the beginning, and I use this a lot in my coaching sessions, it is far from complete. In fact, it is your life that actually tells you what you value. So I noticed that while I picked some values that I felt I aligned to, my life was singing a slightly different tune. Now, I can tell you that I finally did figure out what values I possess, what core values I possess after some work. And we will be doing some of that work in today's episode, don't worry. And I can also tell you that honestly, that realization of what my core values were, what I truly, truly valued, has given me so much peace because instead of judging myself, I started understanding myself. Do you see now why I say this is so related to, or this follows on from self awareness? So, right now in my life, when I sense that something feels off or I feel exhausted after saying yes to things that don't light me up, I no longer wonder why. It's simply because something is in misalignment and I can focus my energies on getting back into alignment. And just as a side note, the more aligned you feel, especially in your day to day living, the more fulfilled and happier you'd likely be. And don't worry, at the end of the episode, I'm going to share with you what those values are for me. So make sure you stay tuned till the end if you are at all curious. For now, though, let's talk about you. But before we do that, I feel like I need to share 3 core principles you ought to know about values because understanding these will change the way you look at your own. So see this as the very foundation before we start doing the work. Number 1, values can change. I know that sounds shocking, especially if you grew up believing they were set in stone. I know I certainly did myself. But research actually backs this up. Psychologists like Shalom Schwartz and Milton Rokic found that values naturally shift through life stages. So think new responsibilities like becoming a parent, for instance, or new environments and experiences. And these literally rewire what feels most important to us. So values evolve as you evolve. The priorities that make sense in your 20s might not hold the same weight right now. Back then, maybe adventure was your oxygen. And then maybe now it's peace. And that doesn't mean you've lost yourself. It just simply means that you're maturing into who you've become. So your values are living things, they are living, breathing reflections of your current season. Number 2, you can't just choose from a list. And I've already shared that while this may be a good starting point to get the thinking juices flowing, you would most likely need to go a bit further, a bit deeper. And this is where most people get tripped up. They treat values like a buffet. Oh, I'll take integrity and courage, and then I'm going to go over there and pick faith. Because these look good on me, right? But values aren't a vibe, they are evidence. They show up in your priorities, they show up when you are anal about what you protect at all costs, and they certainly show up in what keeps getting your attention. So it's not really just what you simply believe about yourself. So, my invitation is instead of picking what sounds aspiring or noble, why not pay attention to the paper trail, the breadcrumbs that your life is already leaving? What do your decisions right now reveal? What have you spent the most energy, time, or emotion on lately? That's where your true values lie. And as Brené Brown will say, we can't live into values we can't name. We can't name values we don't practice. In other words, you can't pick values off a list like new nail colors. You discover them by looking honestly at what your life already says. And then, number three, when you live out of alignment, your body and spirit will tell you. I promise you, you'll feel it. That tightness in your chest before saying yes to something you don't want, that low grade exhaustion from trying to please everyone, yep, that is your system flashing a values violation warning light. When your choices don't match with your core values, life starts to feel heavier than it should. But when they do align, you move differently. Decisions feel cleaner, energy flows easier, and peace, becomes your default. Science calls this cognitive dissonance. It's mental, emotional stress that comes from living one way but believing another. Your body literally interprets misalignment as a threat. And then when you flip it, the same science shows that alignment triggers your brain's reward center. Everything just feels lighter. You stop second guessing, you start trusting yourself again. And there's this and then there's this quiet steadiness that follows you around. Hey dreamer, quick pause. If this episode is stirring something in you but you're not sure how to start, I've got you. Grab my free dream activation kit. It's your first bold step out of confusion and into clarity. Inside, you'll get the Spark session, a guided audio to help you reconnect with what you really want, my dream discovery workbook to map it all out, and Dream Speak, a short affirmation track to boost your belief again. This isn't fluff, my friend. It is fuel and it is completely free. DM me the word dream on Instagram at HeyTiari or head to the link in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. So I invite you to hold these three truths close to you. Your values can evolve, they're revealed by your actions, and your body always knows when something is off. Now, let's figure out what your life has been trying to tell you about what you value. If you've ever felt confused about your direction, being torn between what looks smart and what feels right, then chances are your values are either unclear or they are clashing. So let's make this practical, shall we? If you're somewhere you can pause for a moment, maybe not driving or doing the school run, then I want you to grab your journal or your notes app if you're so inclined. And if you can't do that just right now, then I want you to just sit quietly and reflect with me for a bit. We're going to use Brené Brown's values list for this next part. So, once again, you'll find the link in the show notes or just Google it. And if you're listening after the episode or you are wanting to come back to the episode and want to go get the list, then DM me if that's easier for you at HeyTiari on Instagram and I will send the link straight to you. On it, you'll find a long list of words. If you don't have access to it right now, don't worry. Here are some values that often come up in my coaching sessions and conversations. See which ones make your heart do a little jump when you hear them. So there's freedom, family, purpose, recognition, growth, peace, creativity, adventure, connection, authenticity, excellence, and compassion. Now, obviously, that is not the exhaustive list. That's just a handful from the list. But I'm giving you this handful just in case you are driving and like you are like me, who on long journeys, I like to listen to podcasts. And obviously, that means you can't stop and do the exercise. Or, you know what, you can come back to it later on, no problem. But if you find yourself in these ones, like two or three of these feel most true for you in this season of your life, then let's continue. If none feels aligned right now, then that's okay. Like I said, there's a much longer list. It just means you will need to grab Renee's list and work from there while you listen to me. Now, here's what I want you to do. Step one, I call this step the head pick. Look through the list and circle or highlight the words that instantly speak to you. The ones that make your head nod and your heart go, yep, that's me. Don't overthink it, just go with the first instinct. This is your head list, the values you aspire to. In the next step, we're going to go a slightly bit deeper. Now, step two, I call this one the heart reality check. Now, I want you to set that list you just created aside and take a look at your last 6 months of life. Now, it will really help if you usually journal. And even if you don't, because you can always go back to your previous journal entries. But even if you don't, just take a little stock, okay? Pull up your calendar. If you're like me, I live in my calendar, right? Pull up your calendar or your bank statements, because sometimes your money goes where your heart is, okay? Or your camera roll on your phone or on an actual camera. What kind of pictures have you been taking? Anything that tells the truth about where your time, money, and energy have gone, okay? Now ask yourself these questions. What was I most protective of? What triggered my biggest emotional reactions? Where did I show up even when it was hard? And what did I consistently sacrifice for? Those patterns, as opposed to your intentions, reveal your lived values. For example, when I looked back, I remember feeling miserable every time I had to go gigging because it meant leaving my family for a time and I felt I was missing out. But that was not all. I would turn down gigs. I would literally turn down gigs, paid gigs, or find a way to work around them or convince myself not to do them sometimes and feel completely at peace about it. That's when I saw clearly my value of family or connection or community. Predominantly family, though. To me, family wasn't just a word, but an invisible thread running through those gigging decisions. So, what are yours? What does your life say you truly value? Not what you want to value. I reiterate that again. Not what you want to value, not what sounds great as a value to have, but what actually shows up when no one is watching. And once you have that list written down, then we move over to step three. Feel free to pause me at any time if you want to just have some time to think even deeper. Now, step three. I'm calling this the alignment audit. Now, take those two lists you've just created, the head list and the heart list, and I want you to compare them. Ask yourself, where do these overlap? And then ask yourself, where do they clash? For those ones that overlap, yeah, right there, that's your current truth. But the goal isn't to have a perfect overlap between your head and heart lists. It is to notice where you're aligned and where you are drifting. So while the overlap shows you your current truth, the gap probably shows you where your growth is wanting to happen. If your head says you value peace, but your life shows you're always chasing achievement, then that is a clue. Or if your head says faith, but your energy goes towards control, there's a gap, obviously. Or even still, if your head says creativity, but your calendar is screaming burnout, then you've got some realignment to do. So don't judge it. Just observe, just notice it. Be an observer. That awareness alone is incredibly powerful. You can't live a life that feels true until you see where you've drifted. Now, step four. Now it's time to choose your compass words. What are compass words, you ask? Your compass words are those words that help you stay true when everything else is shifting. They are the values you come back to again and again, the ones that keep you grounded and help you make decisions that feel right, not just look right. Another word for compass, I guess, will be navigation words. So when I say pick your compass words, I mean choose the 3 to 5 values that you want to guide this next chapter of your life. Not forever, just for now. Hey, dreamer, quick pause. If this episode is stirring something in you, but you're not sure how to start, I've got you. Grab my free dream activation kit. It's your first bold step out of confusion and into clarity. Inside, you'll get the Spark session, a guided audio to help you reconnect with what you really want, my dream discovery workbook to map it all out, and Dream Speak, a short affirmation track to boost your belief again. This isn't fluff, my friend. It is fuel, and it is completely free. DM me the word dream on Instagram at HeyTiari or head to the link in the show notes. All right, back to the episode. So when you have your list, I want you to write them down somewhere visible, either on your mirror, if you have one, your journal, or your phone wallpaper, wherever you'll see it daily. Let those words remind you that this is who I am and this is what matters most right now. Because making decisions through the lens of your values makes life so much simpler. Not necessarily easier, but clearer. And clarity is one of the kindest gifts you can give yourself. Now, before we wrap up this section, promise me something. Promise me you'll revisit this exercise every few months, say once a quarter, or at the very least once every year. The end of the year or every birthday is usually a fantastic time. Because you're not static and life will change. You will change. And so your values will shift too. So revisiting them helps you stay aligned with your present season instead of living by an outdated version of yourself. Think of it like recalibrating your compass because the direction that was right for past you might not be right for right now you. So make it a rhythm, a type of ritual, way to keep your life honest and your dreams aligned. Now, at the beginning of the episode, I did promise that I was going to share my own values for where I am right now. Number one for me on my list has always been freedom, which I see every time I fight for flexibility or panic every time I feel trapped. And then I already mentioned family. And I see this in every decision that I make that revolves around the people that I love. The next one is meaning. That deep, sometimes inconvenient need for my work to matter. And then recognition. And before you judge me, I'm not saying it from a vanity standpoint, but that longing to be seen for what I bring. And then finally, novelty. It doesn't have to be this massive thing, but it represents my itch for newness, growth, and discovery. And once I owned these, so many of my choices, my past choices, that is, made sense. I wasn't flaky, I was just freedom driven. Where people or where I felt I was restless, I was just novelty oriented. And when I felt I was too emotional, I was deeply wired for meaning. Now, I'm not saying that we all don't have growing to do. For sure, we are all works in progress. Keyword there being progress. Now, let me leave you with the quote of the week from the one and only Brené Brown, seeing that we've spent so much time talking about her and her list today anyway. And it is this: daring leaders who live into their values are never silent about hard things. Now, you might not see yourself as the quintessential leader, and I'm doing air quotes at the moment, but you are. We all are. You're a leader of your life, you're a leader in your family, and you're a leader of your dreams. Living into your values means showing up truthfully, even when it is messy or inconvenient. Means saying no to what looks good so you can say yes to what genuinely feels right. So here is your reflection prompt for the week. Ask yourself, where am I out of alignment with my true values? And what small shift would bring me closer? Remember, dreamers, self awareness starts the journey, but values keep you steady on the road. You don't need a perfect plan, you just need an honest compass. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep daring, and keep moving towards your spark. And that's it for today's episode of Dream in Action. I hope this conversation stirred something in you, maybe a fresh idea, a little more clarity, or just a reminder that your dreams are valid and worth pursuing. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new one. And if you're feeling generous, leaving a review helps people find this podcast. It's like telling the algorithm, hey, this is worth listening to. So if this spoke to you today, and you don't even do any of the other two, please share it with a friend or two. Before we go, let me leave you with one of my favorite Bible verses of all time. Never doubt God's mighty power to work in you and accomplish all this. He will achieve infinitely more than your greatest request, your most unbelievable dream, and exceed your wildest imagination. He will outdo them all, for his miraculous power constantly energizes you. Ephesians 3:20. Until next time, dream wildly, live boldly, and keep going.